Many fans are frustrated. There seems to be a significant amount of doubt, more so than I've ever seen, with all due respect, in you.
Will there be any change in Ken Dorsey's status?
No.
It's time to pivot. Chuck Knox, he cleaned up the Rams, the Bills, and the Seahawks, but then he would hit the ceiling. Marty Schottenheimer cleaned up a lot of messes. You got to be able to get to the next level, and this franchise is now regressing.
A lot of Bills Mafia is jumping ship not only on the 2023 season, but on Sean McDermott and our offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. I'm going to compare Andy Reid to Sean McDermott, to Marty Schottenheimer, to Marvin Lewis, to Chuck Knox. And at the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why the Buffalo Bills need Sean McDermott.
Won a lot of games here, and for good reason.
The first point I want to make here is that Sean McDermott preaches Kaizen. Kaizen means continuous improvement. Jordan Poyer occasionally brings this up as well. It's about continuously improving.
As a play caller, there's always going to be things that you're learning from, and you grow from an experience standpoint.
Sean McDermott is a very young head coach. He really hasn't had a lot of experience in the NFL. So let's just take a look at their overall records compared to Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott is currently 49 years old and has never coached in a Super Bowl as a head coach. Now, Andy Reid made it to his first Super Bowl appearance as a head coach when he was 46 years old. But what's more important to take a look at are the success rates and their records during the regular season as well as the postseason. We can clearly see here that Sean McDermott during the regular season is at .632 and in the postseason at 4-5 at .444. Totally in McDermott's career, he's at .617. We all know how great of a head coach Andy Reid is and a lot more experience with Andy Reid, but we can clearly see the postseason record here at .579 as well as his overall career at .638. And keep in mind, Andy Reid is currently 65 years old, basically 15 years older than Sean McDermott, 15 years more experience in the NFL than Sean McDermott. And going on what Colin Cowherd said about Chuck Knox and the comparisons between these head coaches that couldn't get over the hump, you could clearly see a massive difference in their overall record compared to Sean McDermott. In his 22 coaching year career, Chuck Knox had a .389 win percentage in the playoffs. Totally, his win-loss record throughout those 22 years, it was a .558 record. Again, Sean McDermott in his career so far is a .617, and in the postseason, he's at .444. Sean McDermott is in his 7th year as a head coach in the NFL. He's continuously learning. He's continuously improving. Marty Schottenheimer, another head coach that was stated to not really ever be able to win a Super Bowl, you can clearly see his record here, especially in the postseason. NFL record of 5-13 at a dismal .278 record in the postseason. So yeah, Marty Schottenheimer could win games during the regular season, but when he got to the postseason, he couldn't win. Again, Sean McDermott at .44 record in the postseason at 4-5. Marty Schottenheimer at 5-13. Sean McDermott has just one less postseason win than Marty Schottenheimer. You could see the coaching experience with Marty Schottenheimer being a head coach starting in 1984. Marty Schottenheimer had 22 years in the NFL to win a Super Bowl, and he couldn't do it. Another head coach that got a lot of flack for not ever winning a postseason game was Marvin Lewis of the Cincinnati Bengals. 0-7 in the postseason, and you could see throughout his career, he had a .504 total record. It's not only about regular season wins, it's about winning in the postseason. And Sean McDermott has proved that he can win in the postseason. He has a 4-5 record, only missing the playoffs once as a head coach in the NFL with the Buffalo Bills. And it goes beyond just Sean McDermott being a head coach with only 7 seasons under his belt. Ken Dorsey is only in year 2 as being an offensive coordinator in the NFL. You could hear Ken Dorsey even state it's about experience, it's about learning, it's about continuously growing.
Experience, you can't replace experience, whether it's as a player out there on the field, whether it's a play caller calling it. Those things are have been extremely valuable for me, and I think I feel I continue to grow from those experiences.
And obviously, there are some things that Ken Dorsey wants to have back. And I think one of the problems that we see here is really not committing to the run. Sean McDermott even saying like, yeah, we're utilizing the RPO style run, but how does that ultimately look? How does that ultimately affect the defenses that we're going against? And I think the Bills just need to stay committed to running the football. Even if it's not successful, the commitment to running the ball keeps opposing defenses honest. It keeps them guessing.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just making sure we're balanced in our approach.
For Colin Cowherd to say that the Buffalo Bills are regressing and that it's time for the Buffalo Bills to pivot and find basically a different coach, I completely wholeheartedly disagree. I don't think the Buffalo Bills would even be able to find a coach, a head coach in the NFL to come here and win games. I would say the best head coach out there right now would be Jon Gruden, and we can take a look at his postseason record at 5-4, only one game better than Sean McDermott, who is at 4-5. Buffalo is a small market team. We're a small market area. We had such a hard time even finding a head coach to want to come to Buffalo and to include free agents that wanted to come here. The fact that Sean McDermott preaches Kaizen, or the need to continuously improve, is something that the Buffalo Bills and small market Buffalo absolutely needs. Ken Dorsey is continuing to improve. Sean McDermott is continuing to improve. And yes, it's not an ideal situation that we don't have an Andy Reid on our team or an elite head coach. And the other thing I want to show you is what happened to the teams after they parted ways with some of these head coaches, such as Andy Reid getting fired from the Philadelphia Eagles, even Bill Belichick getting fired with the New York Giants and going to the Patriots and having a dynasty. What happened with the Cincinnati Bengals after they fired Marvin Lewis? Andy Reid, the year he got let go with the Philadelphia Eagles, here we could see the Philadelphia Eagles went 10-6 that following year, losing in a wild card game. In 2014, they didn't even make the playoffs. In 2015, they went 7-9 and missed the playoffs again. 2016, the Eagles went 7-9. And it wasn't until 2017 where they got back on track and actually won the Super Bowl under Doug Peterson. The point I'm trying to make here is that if we let go of Sean McDermott now, we can expect at least 3 to 4 seasons of a wasteland here in Buffalo where we're not going to be winners. We could potentially miss the playoffs for 3 or 4 years. Marvin Lewis was let go at the end of 2018 for the Cincinnati Bengals. In 2019, the Cincinnati Bengals went 2-14. In 2020, the Bengals went 4-11. In the following year, they did make it to the Super Bowl and lost, but only had a record at 10-7. And keep in mind, they had those high draft picks back-to-back years, landing Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. They really took over a pretty sound team with Marvin Lewis. It was just the fact that he went 0-7 in the postseason, and they finally moved on from him. Joe Mixon was already there. Tyler Boyd was already there. What a lot of Bills fans are missing, too, is the fact that we are beating ourselves. We're not getting beat by opponents. The turnover differential for the Bills is absolutely horrible.
It's hard to win when you turn the ball over twice.
The amount of giveaways this offense is giving opposing teams is absolutely horrible. When you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, an 0-2 turnover differential against a great team such as the Bengals, that is not a good formula to win. Josh Allen had 3 interceptions against the New York Jets. And some other things too is that the Buffalo Bills are undefeated at home. All of our losses have come in away stadiums. And we even hear Ken Dorsey talk about why he hasn't really called so much hurry up, and it really has a lot to do with the crowd noise at opposing teams.
Why, when all of your players after the game are saying that they seem to be functioning better in a more up-tempo style, are you not getting into a more up-tempo style earlier in games and more frequently in games?
Yeah, well, we definitely started off in it, this past game. I think at times there, the crowd noise became a factor with the communication there. We were in some backed up situations there, so we couldn't quite get in that rhythm of the tempo stuff, utilizing maybe a little bit more of a sugar huddle than a true no huddle.
Ken Dorsey and the Bills are going to continue to grow, continue to get better, and use a sugar huddle versus just a simple no huddle. And a lot of fans forget that the Bills could still make playoffs by simply winning the AFC East. Only one game behind the Miami Dolphins, who we already beat, and the Miami Dolphins have not won a single game against a team with a winning record dating back to last year. And yes, the remaining schedule for the Buffalo Bills is awfully hard, but we still have the bye week ahead of us. And when you take a look at the Miami Dolphins schedule, might be slightly easier, but still some tough games and you really don't know what's going to happen, especially playing against that New York Jets defense who is playing out of their minds. And you can clearly see the Miami Dolphins only scored 14 points against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. I understand the frustration. I understand the non-commitment to running the ball on offense by Ken Dorsey, but I think a lot of things are very situational. Being down by 2 possessions pretty early in the game against the Cincinnati Bengals got us away from running the ball. I'm sure they felt a little bit more urgency to run up that score. Plus, you couple all the injuries that have happened on this Buffalo Bills defense, just like Sean McDermott said.
With all the injuries that this defense is going through.
Well, you're right. We are banged up defensively, and there's a lot of guys that are out there playing that are doing a phenomenal job of stepping in. Albeit they weren't scheduled starters for the season, and they're not blinking. I mean, they're stepping into some big-time roles.
And instead of blaming the coaches on this team, I think we have to put some blame on the players on this team as well. You know, Gabe Davis with the fumble, Dawson Knox with the fumble, Josh Allen and all the interceptions. Sean McDermott has continuously said it's a lack of execution.
Well, I think it starts with our level of execution, our level of complementary football.
I don't think it's necessarily Ken Dorsey's scheme or Sean McDermott's scheme or their philosophies. It really boils down to the players making plays. Can't forget about some of the players that are balling out on this team, such as Dalton Kincaid, clearly presenting a different skill set at the tight end position. You know, 81 yards, 75 yards, 65 yards. He's really starting to blossom the past several weeks. When you take a look at Dawson Knox stats so far in 2023, really his highest receiving total was 25 yards, and that was week 1 of this season. And you go back to Dawson Knox's rookie year in the NFL, and his highest receiving total was 67 yards. So it just goes to show you the ability that Dalton Kincaid has. Dawson Knox in his second season of the NFL, his highest receiving total was 51 yards. It wasn't until year 3 that Dawson Knox started having some of the receiving numbers that Dalton Kincaid has in his rookie year. We can see in the playoffs, Dawson Knox had 89 yards, and for the first time in his career, and only time in his career, Dawson Knox went over 100 yards against the Kansas City Chiefs at 117. In last year, 2022, we could see that Dawson Knox almost went for 198 yards against the Miami Dolphins. Just like Sean McDermott said, all the injuries have really happened on the defensive side of the ball, but you also have to remember that we brought in Leonard Fournette, Rasul Douglas, Linval Joseph, who only had 2 practices leading up into this game. I'm sure that they're going to continually get better as the season goes along, as well as Von Miller, who is starting to show glimpses of his old self after that ACL injury.
Von, and the fact that have you seen, and what gives you confidence that he is turning the corner coming off his injury?
The rushes are becoming more and more physical. The angles are a lot tighter. A week ago against Tampa, Vaughn had a hit on the quarterback in a 2-minute situation that nearly ended the ball game. And so I'm starting to see him put his rush combinations together, the coordination, when to use his stab, when to work the top shoulder of the offensive tackle, when to counter, and also when to work with the defensive tackle next to him.
So to jump ship right now on the Buffalo Bills, to try to pivot away from Sean McDermott and Ken Dorsey and all these things really does not make a whole lot of sense for me. Continuity here in Buffalo is ultra important. You know, Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, I believe, are tied at the hip too. We get rid of Sean McDermott, I think people are going to start pointing fingers at our general manager, Brandon Beane, who's really done an outstanding job being here in Buffalo, turning this franchise around, making it a free agent destination, having people want to come here, such as Von Miller, such as Linval Joseph, such as Leonard Fournette. We never have had that. Buffalo really isn't that desirable of an area to want to live in for 6-7 months out of the year. As fans, I think we have to deal with what we got and bet on the fact that they believe in Kaizen, the need to continuously improve. And the facts are that we have had some winning football here, only missing the playoffs once. The fact that we turned this franchise around, the fact that we did make it a free agent destination. So how will the Buffalo Bills continuously improve? We heard Ken Dorsey speak of a sugar huddle versus just a straight non-huddle, especially in away games and away stadiums when the Bills are dealing with the silent count because of that crowd noise. Bills, again, are are undefeated at home. Sean McDermott beefed up this defense with Linval Joseph, Rasul Douglas, even Leonard Fournette to help boost this offense. We control our own destiny. If we win the AFC East, which I think we're fully capable of, Miami not beating a single opponent with a winning record. We already beat Miami this year. If the Bills get into the playoffs, maybe Daquan Jones comes back. Maybe Matt Milano makes a surprise appearance too. To think that we need to jump ship, that we need to pivot away from Sean McDermott and all the coaches on this coaching staff just clearly does not make sense to me at this point. I truly believe the Buffalo Bills are fully capable of winning the Super Bowl here in 2023. If we stop beating ourselves and start taking care of the football, we start having a much better turnover differential. All the trials and tribulations that the Bills have gone through this season, even last year, I think we are building a certain grit and DNA here in Buffalo, a backyard football DNA coupled with continuous growth. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit like and also subscribe to future content. Check out my latest video after this, 12 instances where the NFL refs screwed up against the Buffalo Bills versus Cincinnati Bengals. But I appreciate you guys, and go Bills.